Good evening. We have today with us Dr. Shobha Shukla and Mr. Bobby Ramakant. They are working with CNS, uh, an organization, a news site which has been dedicatedly working for on various issues, including very vital issues related to health. So, Mr. Bobby and Shobhaji, welcome to this interview.
Thank you, Shoaib, but I would like to say I'm not a doctor, so I don't deserve that title. I'm just a commoner and not a doctor. Yes.
Okay. I stand corrected. So can you
Thank
please
you
tell
so much,
us,
Sab. Thank you.
yeah, can you please tell us the background how you started this CNS, this project, Shobhaji?
I think Bobby would be better to answer that question because he started it earlier and I joined in later. So over to Bobby.
I think Shobha Madam is very humble. Probably she has been a big inspiration behind CNS. So Shoaib Saab, thank you so much for noticing us. First of all, we will be very grateful for the kind of support and which we get from Weekly Blitz. Thanks a lot for that. So CNS Shoaib Saab began in around 91 actually, when Shobha Madam and me and others who were really struggling to find spaces in print media in particular, and radio and television, which were state-owned radio and television. Those were the only other channels apart from English and Hindi newspapers. So and we wanted to write on issues that really mattered to us, and that kind of a space was a bit of a struggle, and those were not the days of blogging and stuff. So it began as a feature service so that we can write news and features and editorials in English, and we began with the newspapers, and over the years it has emerged as a focused on issues. We expanded the focus on issues also because when we moved ahead, we realized that the interdependence and interlinkages between issues, and not only about health and development, but also how political the issues are. And so it basically really forced us to expand our focus and approach. And over the years, Shoaib Saab, sorry for taking so much of time, but I will quickly say that with the advent of social media technologies and social media platforms, a lot has changed over the years, and that is why that is the also influenced our journey massively. And we have tremendous respect for the courage of Weekly Blitz and Shoaib Saab, for you in particular, to stand up for peace and justice. So likewise, like now when we look back, we had to use social media because we had no resources to print. We tried to register a print publication and run it, but it was so difficult. That's a whole different ball game financially and otherwise. So we had to use bloggers, blog, and our site is even now it is hosted on Blogger.
In this case, I'd like to ask you another question, very important, because you are playing very important role for public health issues. So for this reason, are you getting substantial funding or any kind of help from international organizations?
Yes, a very important question, Shoaib Sahab. So the whole model is such that we never received support for CNS. So that is why it is still functions from Shobha ma'am's home in Lucknow. And Shobha ma'am and I are there. So how do we sustain? So, Sir Shoaib Sahab, we sustain doing other communication work, which we often do. So, like for example, we have authored books, reports. We have also managed communication campaigns at a very smaller level. So I think this is very important for us. Now, when we reflect back, we really feel lucky that we have been able to sustain it without compromising on editorial independence, and also the kind of issues we wanted to work on. Because when we see the shrinking and almost closing spaces in media in terms of freedom of press, it is really very deeply worrying, Shoaib Saab, the way things have become, and also the corporate capture of the media. So it has become really very, very difficult for journalists to be journalists in terms of ethics and integrity, because the corporate pressures are so huge. For instance, in India, sir, as you may be aware, that two big corporate houses, Adani and Ambani, they own most of the media houses. And very recently, you might have followed how Ravish Kumar Sahab, who stood for principles and ethics and integrity, had to move out of NDTV, where he had spent so many decades. Over to you, sir.
Shivaji,
Uh,
as
yeah.
you are also you are covering politics, as Bobby ji just now told us. So we know that media outlets in most of the countries in the world, including India, those are basically belonging to certain political groups or parties or affiliations, and they don't have really any problem with the funding. But as to CNS, I mean, what sort of political affiliations you have in your news agency?
Uh, Politics affects our life, Shoaib Saab, in every sphere, but irrespective of political affiliations, because my focus, and I just wanted to add to what Bobby had said just now when you were talking of how do we sustain ourselves, that CNS has taught me to reduce my needs. We all need a certain amount of financial help to lead our lives, but how much do we need? That is important, and we are there for the passion of what we are working for. And yes, we need us, as I said, we need some certain amount, but then again, as we say, what is the limit? How much do you need? So CNS has also taught me to have a minimalistic attitude towards living and life. And my focus basically, as far as I'm concerned, is to bring in some gender equity in the system, in CNS, and in all the work we do. Because I feel gender impacts everything. Basically, like, I'm focusing on health issues and other development justice issues. But I have seen that even the same bacteria, the TB bacteria or any other virus, scientifically, it affects everyone. But on a social and health-seeking behavior, it really impacts women in a much worse manner than men. That is what I have learned. And unless we see everything with the lens of gender equality and gender equity, we are not going to achieve anything. We are talking, I'm again talking basically of health, but because that is important. Unless you have good health, you will not be able to do
Meaning this CNN is until now mainly focusing on public health issues and issues related to gender equality, but you are not focusing on politics, right?
No, not directly on politics. No, see, politics is involved when we are talking of health. What is the health infrastructure? How do we render our healthcare services? So there is a political will, and it has a political connotation, but not otherwise, not per se politics. No.
But to increase the readership of your news site, actually, I have been reader of CNS. I know CNS since 2006 or 7, because Babaji has been communicating with us for many years. So, as a journalist, what I say, the people don't really or particularly read a news site which is only covering health issues and gender equalities. You need to cover international issues. I mean, it's not necessary that you're supporting any particular group, but there should be something like that. Also, something related to terrorism, militancy, because these are all important issues that we are facing in our walks of life. So I think CNS can also involve people from those areas. For example, myself, I cannot write on health issues or anything related to gender equality. But of course, if you're talking about militancy or terrorism, being a specialist, I can also write, because I want more people to be engaged with CNS as contributors. At the same time, I'm sure that people will be watching this interview, and they will consider actively in investing funding. I mean, they would be interested in helping CNS financially, because of course, without finance, a news site cannot survive. You will also agree, but CNS is, uh, I mean, it should not be branded as a news site focusing only on health issues or gender equality. I mean, you have to diversify your areas of, I mean, coverage. Now, recently, Shobhaji, you have written an article jointly, Bobbyji and Shobhaji, you have written about TB, tuberculosis, and about the tobacco, that the tobacco is the main reason for the spread of tuberculosis in the society. So, can you please just say a few words about this matter?
Okay, before I come to that, you were talking of why we are not focusing on other issues, like you are not focusing on health. Shoaib ji, you are able to focus on other issues. What is health? Because you are mentally healthy. Health is just not a physical concept, and even the WHO defines health not just absence from disease, but a complete state of well-being and happiness. That is what health is about.
Yeah, but of course, I
Yes.
understand and I appreciate. But what I think
Yes.
that, like,
Yes.
people read newspapers for diversified news, comprehensive news. I want CNS to have more readership, because that is the way. If CNS is branded as a news site dedicatedly publishing news on public health and gender equality, then you have lesser number of readers. You know very well.
Okay, I will just hand over the mic to Bobby now, because let him say his thoughts also on this.
Yes, thanks, yeah, thank you so much, ma'am, and thank you so much, Shoaib Saab, for not only support but also your guidance. We are totally agree with you. We totally echo what you have just said, and let us hope that with your blessings and support, and probably we might be able to do progress towards that direction. However, I would just like to quickly add, Shoaib Saab, that. Politically, we can very easily and comfortably say that, we are totally not, supporting the political parties, as well as those political parties, especially that have a direct conflict of interest with the kind of agenda which, like the development justice agenda, for instance. So, by and large, if you see the rising authoritarian regimes, and not only in India but also in many other countries, that has or religious fundamentalism, for instance, or militarization, as you see in Myanmar and others, like that has a direct consequence on the promises our governments have made for sustainable development goals, for example. So, on one hand, on international forum, governments of India, Myanmar, and so many other countries have endorsed sustainable development goals. On one hand, there was COVID-19 pandemic happening, but in that COVID-19 pandemic times, we saw what happened in Myanmar. We saw what happens with on farmers' movement in India, for example, during the pandemic, where government policies forced people, thousands and thousands of people, to camp for almost a year around Delhi and so many other states. And this kind of the whole duality of having a system which serves the interest of the top 1% rich and elite, and then the remaining people have to pay the price. This kind of system is not going to work. So this kind of politics is really very dangerous, and that is what is happening in so many rich nations as well. We saw what is happening in US, and we are also seeing what is happening in our countries. But thanks a lot, Shoaib Saab, again for your guidance, and let us hope that we are able to do that. May I take one more minute to say, Shoaib Saab, we've been very closely involved with some people's movements. So, for example, the anti-nuclear campaign, or the campaign to make the South Asia nuclear free, when India conducted its first nuclear test. So we were part of the team that took out a foot march from Pokhran, the blast site, to Varanasi for 88 days on the foot in 1999. And that kind of mobilization was very important. But at the same time, we really need people-centric politics, the whole model of politics which we are seeing very aggressively being rolled out to us, that is almost like our democracies are failing, or our constitutional morality is at risk.
But yeah, you know that what you're doing is very appreciable, I mean, applaudable. But in addition to these, you can also cover maybe like the issues related to empowerment of women and threats posed by militancy, terrorism, because as Shobhaji said, yes, health is very important, but at the same time, issues related to empowerment of women and militancy, but this is also important which CNS can expand these areas. But I was asking one question, I asked one question to Shobhaji just now, that you have recently written an article about the risk of tobaccos and the dangers it plays in spreading the tuberculosis. So if you could just tell me very briefly about this matter, because we have few more questions for you.
Yes, because that again, see, it is not the TB bacteria which is spreading the disease, but it is a lot many avoidable risk factors. Because TB prevention, how do we prevent it? Bacteria will remain there. Many Western countries have eliminated tuberculosis long years ago, and they have not eliminated the bacteria from their country. The bacteria is still there, but they have ways and means of preventing people from getting tuberculosis. And to that, for prevention, we need to address the risk factors. And one of the major risk factors, I'm not saying the only risk factor, but one of the major risk factors, and there are evidences and studies have been done to prove it, is use of tobacco. Then there are other risk factors. Yes.
Yeah, please continue.
Yes. No, you please ask. Yes.
I would like to bring a very important issue to your attention, to Bobbyji's attention, and to your attention. Recently, someone joined our interview, and she said that 53% of the males, 53%, including the boys, infants, they become victims of sexual violence. And she said that amongst these victims, they become, victims of sexual violence where they are working in some factories or other places, as well as they are victims of the sexual assault by truck drivers and bus drivers. But we know that AIDS is spreading like bonfire in many countries in the world. And when we are talking about this global village, every country is open. We are moving from one country to another country. So 53% of the males falling victims of sexual violence. They are being raped. So one day these boys are grown up, they're getting married, and they even don't know if they are carrying HIV virus. So just they're passing on this virus on some very innocent girls, the age awareness is not sufficiently done in this subcontinent. Unfortunately, it's my personal opinion. And people like you and the organization CNS, who are really doing a lot of things about making people aware of AIDS and the transmittable sexual diseases. You need more support from international community, not only moral support, then you need financial support, because otherwise you cannot continue your work. So how do you feel, Shobhaji and Bobbyji? 53% of the men become falling victims of sexual violence. That they are being raped. And then we don't know how many percentage of them are already being transmitted with HIV. And this HIV, as Bobbyji just now mentioned about the COVID pandemic, but it is, COVID pandemic is curable, but this HIV, if it is transmitted in the society, keeps on transmitting and growing. We are really leaving our future generation at a nuclear bomb. Can you please, both of you, comment on this?
Yes. Bobby, would you please begin, and then I'll join you?
Yes, yes, it's very worrying, Shoaib Saab. Totally agree and totally share your concern. Any kind of sexual or any other form of gender-based violence against males, boys, or girls, or transgender, or any other people of any other gender and sexual identity is extremely, any human being is extremely, condemnable and must never happen. And this really puts, you are very, very right, this puts people at risk of not only getting acquiring HIV, but also acquiring a range of other sexually transmitted infections, as well as it leaves lifelong scars. Incidents like sexual violence leaves lifelong scars and immense mental health issues which they need to deal with. But your concern about infectious disease, and especially HIV, is really, really very valid. Number of If you look at the number of new HIV infections, those of your the what you said, Shoaib Saab, is extremely, again, very, very valid and to the point, that HIV prevention has really taken a back seat, or you can also say has gone out of the window in many, many ways of our governments. So governments are more like in the diagnosing and treating mode, but less on preventing the breaking the chain of transmission of infection like HIV and many other sexually transmitted infections. So STIs are also very important because many sexually transmitted infections remain asymptomatic. Number one. Number two, they increase the risk of HIV acquisition. So incidents like, so for example, post-exposure prophylaxis, PEP, is a medicine which is part of our national HIV program. I do believe that it is also part of the Bangladesh program. That must be given to people who have undergone sexual violence, so that the risk of getting infected with HIV, even if the person who did that, the perpetrator of sexual violence was a HIV positive, is minimized. Similarly, there is so much more we can do on HIV prevention. Shoaib Sahab, government of Bangladesh, government of India, all governments in the world have promised to end AIDS by 2030. We only have 7 years left. How are they going to end it when number of new HIV infections is not dipping as fast as it should? Rather, it has increased in some countries like Philippines. So, and key population. So, for example, if you look at India, the general population rate of HIV is 0.23%. But number of people who, if you look at key populations, so for example, transgender or hijra, sex worker, or people who use drugs, men who have sex with men, etc., their number of rate of HIV is very, very high, and access to services is very poor. So we really need to, and I will just like to quickly add, we can end AIDS now. Why? Because we know how to prevent AIDS. We already know how to prevent AIDS. Science has shown us how we can prevent transmission of HIV. Number two, we have the medicines. In Bangladesh, in India, in so many countries in the world, people living with HIV get free, life-saving antiretroviral therapy. If they take the antiretroviral therapy and remain virally suppressed, then they will become untransmittable. This is, science has shown that if a person with HIV takes medicines, antiretroviral therapy, and is virally suppressed, then that person will not be able to transmit HIV to the other person. Then that risk is negligible. So even treatment is working as prevention. Apart from that, there is a whole range of combination prevention options which can be used, like condoms and female condoms and so many other pre-exposure prophylaxis, so many others, including abstinence, including behavior change, including ensuring there is no violence happening, no sexual violence happening, no other forms of gender-based violence happening. So the inequities in our society are also putting people at risk of HIV and STIs and so many other injustices. So if we have to end AIDS, you are very right. It is, if we have to end AIDS,
No, but for ending,
we cannot ignore prevention. Sorry,
no, but
yeah.
Babaji, for prevention or ending, you need awareness, and that is the place
Right.
where CNS can play a very important role. I mean, for awareness, what you are doing, we are not doctors, you are not doctors. We are making people aware of the risk posed by HIV, TB, etc. So, for HIV prevention, first thing is CNS deserves patronization, support from organizations, from governments, from various individuals who can support this organization, because what you're doing is very important. If you know and Shobhaji, that CNS is only amongst the only 3 websites or organizations in the world which is dedicatedly working for public health. This is very important role you are playing. So where you need patronization, you need support. Of course. Shobhaji, can you please now last question is about, in this society, in this South Asian society, there is a taboo about menstruation. I mean, our girls, our daughters, they feel shy when they have the period, menstruation period. They feel shy buying the, I mean, pads, etc. So how can we break this taboo? Can you please reply to this question just in 1 minute?
Yes, it's not a 1 minute answer, but I would like to say that Shoaib Saab, as long as we are living in a patriarchal setup, and that is what I, through CNS and other people in CNS, we are rooting for a feminist system of governance everywhere. And by feminism, I don't say it is matriarchal system, but we have to uproot patriarchy. You are talking of, there are so many, you can say, ills which are prevalent in our society, and so many myths and conceptions which have been forced upon women due to that patriarchal setup. And unless we beat that, because patriarchy is just about gaining power and using power and violence against other people to get more powerful. And a feminist system is about caring and solidarity to change the system. So the health-seeking behavior, because again, these taboos which are there in society, they are they have been given by the patriarchal system. I strongly believe in that. So there are, and it's not just, you are right, that like even before a girl is born, the roles of her life are set. And even before a male person is born, at least in this Southeast Asia and in most of the Southeast Asia countries, and even before a boy is born, because in many countries, if a woman gets pregnant, the first thing is, oh, hope she gets a boy. And a complete family is said to be one which consists of, a complete family is one daughter and one son. Why not 2 daughters? Or why anyone? That the woman should have the right to decide whether she wants to have children, when she wants to have them, and how many she wants to have them. So unless that sort of a bodily autonomy is given to the, and not given, but women have to take it. We have to seize the power. And then these problems of feeling shy about menstruation, feeling shy, a woman is told, you should be the last one to eat at home. You are the carer. We have been brought up with that sort of a concept, that woman is the carer. And you would be surprised to know, maybe you have read the recent global report on health says that 70% of the global health force comprises women. But those in the leading positions are 75% men. So women is the carer, fine. But when it comes to her own health, or when it comes to talking about being in the key roles in the health sector, she is nowhere. And menstruation, again, I'm saying this because it is a part of the health, the normal health of a person. If a person is, we have to make, and a lot of progress is taking place in India, a lot of progress has taken place. It is not a taboo subject, and we are doing our own bit for it. There are many awareness campaigns being taken out, and it is, I think in many cases, it is no longer a taboo subject, but yes, it is still there. And unless we remove that patriarchal system and replace it with a more caring system, there will be so many ills in society which will continue.
Dear viewers, we have been talking to Mr. Bobby Ramakant and Shobha Shukla, Ms. Shobha Shukla. They both represent an organization called CNS, and they have been crusaders. They have been doing something extremely applaudable for the public health and many other important issues. And I'd like to call upon everyone who are watching this show to please come forward and help and extend their fullest cooperation to CNS, because for the sake of our own health, for the sake of a very healthy society, we need organizations like CNS. And Shobhaji and Bobbyji, thank you very, very much for joining us. And I'd like to believe that with CNS and BLiTZ, we have been actually working together. We have been publishing each other's contents for many years now. It has come time that we can share our views with people in the world, and we can work more closely. Once again, thank you very, very much for giving us your very precious time.
Thank you so much, Shoaib Saab. Thank you so much for your guidance and blessings and words of support. Thank you. Means a lot to us. Thanks.